Hey, welcome to MotivationU the Podcast. Welcome to MotivationU the Podcast. My name is Bob Ganzak, and we're coming to you live. Well, I'm in my office in Valdosta, Georgia, and Evan is in control of our life at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill inside the coach's podcast room. I get to look at those wonderful helmets in the background and get to see that, which I'm always honored to do. If you've never been to exit 384 on I-75 going into Gainesville, got to stop and go to Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. It's absolutely incredible. Visors upstairs. The food is incredible. The museum is incredible. It's just a great place, and I'm glad to be there. Today's show is a little bit different. One of the things I've been receiving some emails, some questions. Students have asked me, who are the people that influenced you? And we're always talking on here about the influences that my guests have in their life as far as leadership is concerned. And over the last few weeks, we've had some incredible guests. Nathan Whitaker last week was just absolutely joyous, and he will be back. I'm trying to set that up. We have some other things coming up soon. I have on the schedule Alex Marvez from NFL Network, who we're going to talk about the leaders that he has experienced in his life of being in the NFL and sports, different coaches, people he's interviewed. We're going to discuss that. We've had some incredible guests, Dr. Matthew Olson, the University of North Florida, Taylor Leadership Institute, an incredible group of people that work with the athletes there at the University of North Florida and talk about leadership and mentoring and different things. So today we're going to discuss some Dale Carnegie principles. We're going to discuss a lot of things, but the people that influenced me in my leadership, both in my life and in business, and we'll talk about that. And before we get into that, I do want to mention that we have a Dale Carnegie class coming up in Jacksonville starting June 23rd. And you can go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com to sign up for that. And please do, we have plenty of seats available, and we want to make sure that people get the opportunity to go through this program, this incredible program that is life-changing. Some of the things that I've been dealing with in my business life over the last few days are all around that. And we're going to talk about that today, a little bit about that. So jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, you can sign up for that class. As a matter of fact, we have online programs and a variety of different things. So please go to the website, check it out, sign up for a class, invest in yourself. That is the key. Invest in yourself, not only the money, but the time. And the time is well spent when you come out the backside of the class. And one of the things, that people say to me, well, you can't change in 8 weeks. Well, you can start a foundation for change, and you can enhance your career by those things. So let's get into today's program and talk about some of the people that have influenced me and the whys, and then we're going to talk about some words of leadership. And if you have any questions, I'm sure we can take questions, hopefully, Evan, if people have that. If they go to the Facebook page, write your question right in the comment section, and then Evan will figure out some way to get me the question. But so let's talk about some of the people that influenced my life. First and foremost on my list is my dad. My dad was an incredibly hard worker. He graduated from Fordson High School in Dearborn and was a great athlete. But because of some injuries that he had, he was unable to go on and play sports beyond high school. So he went to work for his dad. His dad, my grandfather, owned a printing shop, and my dad worked there for 40 some years until he retired. He passed away in 2012, but many of the things that he taught me, I try to convey in my life. And one of those was work ethic. The gentleman, he worked. When things were tough, he worked multiple jobs. And he just, that work ethic was just something that was instilled in us, all of us in our family. And my dad really brought that to us. He also brought humor to life. I noticed that he always liked to have a smile on his face and put a smile on somebody else's face. So my dad was probably that number one influencer in my life. The second person was a gentleman I talked to quite a bit over the weekend, and that was my ninth grade football coach. When I was in seventh grade, we were going through some challenges, and I met my gym teacher, phys ed teacher, John Pantages. He just influenced my life so much. And it's kind of awkward or weird or strange that many years we lost contact for many, many years. And we both ended up in Ocala, Florida, found out that we were both living in Ocala, Florida. And we reconnected like after 30 years of not seeing each other. And we've stayed close since then. Another odd thing is he has two children, two sons. I have two children. And both of our kids graduated from the same high schools. His oldest son graduated from St. John's Lutheran in Ocala, and his youngest son graduated from Trinity Catholic in Ocala. My son graduated from St. John's Lutheran in Ocala, and my daughter graduated from Trinity Catholic in Ocala. And how does that happen? How does it happen that, your football coach in ninth grade goes that way? But one thing that coach has always taught me is go, go, go. He ends every single text to me, emails to me with those words, go, go, go. And that was what John Pantages really taught me in life, is that persevere, go, 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 keep going. Don't ever slow down. The third person that influenced my life was my baseball coach in college. I went to the University of Detroit, played baseball there, and Coach Miller, just an amazing man. Some of the things that I remember, our first meeting, it was in the fall of 1973, and he brought 10 freshmen in that year, and he took us down what we refer to as the dungeon. And down in the dungeon is where we used to play catch. We had a batting cage. The lighting wasn't really great, but I still remember him sharing with me and sharing with all of us that unfortunately in life, and I remember him pointing to his back pocket, people will judge you by what you put in your back pocket, in your wallet. And he said, you have an opportunity here to get an education, make the most of that. And one other thing that he also taught me that really influenced my life was I used to get embarrassed that my parents came to every one of my games. They traveled with the baseball team every place we went. And in my sophomore year, he could see that I was, mom and dad were always around, and he pulled me aside and he said, you got a blessing that your parents are able to do this and come to all of your games. And he said, acknowledge that, because I was shy and I kind of, stayed away from my parents, and just that talk really turned my life in a different direction. And I will always thank Coach for that. It was just one of those things that he shared, that how important family is. And we lost Coach a couple of years ago, and I miss those conversations. I had his son Bobby on the podcast here a few months ago, and it's nice that I'm able to stay in connection with him, because he reminds me so much of his dad. And still, those words of influence are extremely important to me. So as the people that shape our lives, my dad, my coach, my other coach, I'll give you another name that shaped my life. Back in college, my 5 years at the University of Detroit, I stayed on and was a graduate assistant for a year. My years at the University of Detroit coincided with Dick Vitale's years at the University of Detroit. And one of the things that Coach Vitale, that enthusiasm and energy that man brought to everything that he did, not just the basketball team, but the baseball team, the students at the school, it just, that enthusiasm that you see in Coach Vitale, I always call him Coach. He never coached me, but he'll always be Coach to me. Dick Vitale was one of those people that just, at a right time in my life, instilled that desire for enthusiasm. And I remember some talks that he and I had in his office, and you could go in and sit down and just chat with him. And I love to do that. And he, I hope he knows that he influenced so many lives of people that he didn't even coach. Just those guys, young men that were looking for their place in life and didn't know how to find it. And he had such a huge impact on what we did. So he was an individual that I give a lot of credit for. When I think back and start thinking about the things in my life, I see Dick Vitale as one of those individuals that really helped influence me. I ushered at all the basketball games for 3 years, my sophomore, junior, and senior years at the University of Detroit. And it was so much fun to be in and around a group of people that just had incredible enthusiasm. And the reason that they had the incredible enthusiasm was the man that oversaw that. He pushed himself out there. I remember one Christmas, I don't know if it was my junior year, but we drove in a blizzard, my buddy and I, we drove in a blizzard down to Dayton, Ohio, to watch the game between the Titans, University of Detroit versus University of Dayton. And Coach said if they beat Dayton, he was going to dance at center court after the game. And we upset Dayton on their home court, and there was Coach dancing right in the center of the court after the game. And it was like that type of enthusiasm, that type of passion for what you do is something that has been instilled in me ever since. When I was in the radio business, I mean, I thought of Mr. Vitale many times, because that enthusiasm, when you get down, enthusiasm can really change. Mr. Carnegie, Dale Carnegie, called it the little known secret of success, that enthusiasm. People want to be around you when you're enthusiastic. When you're moping and you're down and that's not great leadership. Great leadership is that enthusiasm, that passion that Coach instilled in all of us. And then the last of the 5 individuals that really influenced my life are my children. My kids, I am so proud of them, and they impact my life in so many ways, just from the standpoint of their passion for what they do. They're both very successful, taking different paths. One went through the educational path of of college and then an MBA. That was my daughter, and my son did it through the entrepreneurial life. But they just have that work ethic that I saw from my dad, that hopefully they got from their mother and their father, and just that desire to be successful, and really, they really like mirror what you want to be, and they influence me very much. So those five. Six individuals, of course, because I have two kids, but I put them together as one. But those, my dad, Coach Pantages, Coach Miller, Coach Vital, and my kids, they are the ones that have influenced my life the most. They really instill in you the desire to keep going. And when things are down, things are tough, we all go through that. Having somebody that you can touch back on and watch how they've overcome challenges, that's something that's really important. Of course, all of the students that I have in classes, they inspire me a great deal. The energy that you get as an instructor, as a teacher, comes from those people in your room, and that's vitally important. So life, people that influence me. And if I look back on that, I would say all of them had the one thing that really, two things, work ethic and enthusiasm. Those two things, as far as a leader, are a great thing to watch after. Look for people that are enthusiastic. And if you need to be more enthusiastic, give yourself that shot of adrenaline to really try to be more enthusiastic in life. Put a smile on your face. That's something that Mr. Carnegie said. His fifth principle, human relations principle, is simply to smile. And sometimes I've got to fake it, but eventually that smile will come out real, and you just got to keep going. So in business, I've been very fortunate to meet some incredible people in the business world. I was sitting here trying to narrow it down to 5 people, and that was extremely difficult, very difficult. So the 5 people that have influenced me the most in business, it was really difficult to narrow that down. First and foremost, my former partner in Wind FM, Ernie Wynn. Ernie epitomized integrity. And when we talk about words of leadership, integrity is one of those words. But Ernie is a man that he is well loved. He's spent his whole career in the radio business, did incredible things, but it was his integrity as a partner that really spurred me to become better. Here's a man that I had never met. We were introduced, and he was willing to invest in me in order to buy a radio station. And we did that together along with Tim Moore, another friend of ours. And we put together Wind FM in Ocala and Gainesville and built a radio station that to this day we're still proud of. And we've not been a part of it for how many years is that now? It's like almost 30 years ago, 27 years ago that radio station started. But Ernie's integrity, that integrity that he carried all the time, the honesty, the ability to have tough conversations. When things weren't going good, he made you feel like you could have that discussion with him, and he didn't belittle you or cut you down because things weren't going well. He just encouraged and was a strong partner. And I will be honest with you, it was really tough to ask him to write a check every month to meet payroll until we built the station to where it needed to be. Yet he made that interaction extremely doable. And I think doable is the right word. The second person that really influenced my life as far as business is concerned was a gentleman by the name of Chuck Mefford. Chuck was the first general manager that I ever worked for in radio. And again, attention to detail, and doing the right thing. Chuck was a talented man, went by the name Chuck Drake on the air. And as a general manager, he was always thinking 10 moves ahead of everybody else. And he came up with some of the corniest things, and you would say, how is that going to work? And yet it did, because he was creative and he constantly stuck to his core principles of building the radio station for the listeners. People wanted to listen to his radio station. He built this image, this aura in the radio station that was just incredible. And I think all of us that worked for Chuck, we all learned from him. He passed away a number of years ago, but man, that man was he was spot on with everything he did. And every time we looked at something, a promotional tool or promotional item back in the 1980s, and he gave people the opportunity to succeed and fail. And when you were failing, he didn't fire you. He coached you. He really helped you. And that's something that has stuck in me ever since. I hope that that people that worked for me in radio stations just had a little glimmering effect of what Chuck instilled in me. So that was a big part of my life in business, is that being around the right people. Freddie Wiebe, somebody that I really admire that we work with in Gainesville, he always says to me, you really, the 5 people that you surround yourself with are going to have the biggest influence on you. And Chuck had a huge influence on me, gave me opportunities. I remember one time I had an opportunity to go to another radio station within our group. I was being offered a job, and he was the person that told me I was being offered the job. And at the end, before I could say yes or no, he said, Bob, I think there's more opportunities, better opportunities down the road. I would probably turn this one down. And he wasn't doing it for himself. He was really looking out for me. I'm sitting there thinking, as a young 30-year-old guy, thinking, wow, here's a great opportunity for me. And he's saying, something better will come down the road. Wait this one out. And I did. And he was right. And it did. So Chuck had a huge influence on my life. Another one was our general sales manager at the time, Bill Pacelli. Again, integrity, a huge word, integrity. Bill was a tough guy. He taught me a lot about selling. He taught me a lot about, I remember going on a sales call with him. And I mean, he would not take no. He would not take no for an answer. And I was getting uncomfortable. I was the one being quiet, watching him sell a client. And this client kept on saying no. And I thought the guy was going to come across the desk, because Bill kept on asking him, why? Why are you turning this down? And he would come back and back and forth. And we walked out of there with a contract, a big contract. And I was like, how did that happen? I couldn't believe it. But Bill, that integrity and stick-to-itiveness, if that's a word. I mean, stick to your guns, really believe in yourself. And Bill was that way, hugely successful man, always was on top of things to help us and doing the right thing. That was a big part of what my life was. The next person, so, when I think of MotivationU and what we've started to build here and the people that have been around it and have helped me with it, I think of Don Winther. Don Winther was a gentleman that gave me my first general manager's job. And something he taught me and told me the first day on the job, he said, if you're having a bad day, stay home. Because I don't want you as the leader of this radio station to come in here in a bad mood and affect the other people. And he believed in me. We didn't know each other for that long, but when he put me in the role as general manager, he gave me every opportunity to succeed. And we did. We succeeded greatly. When I went to him and told him I wanted to hire a guy that maybe had a little bit of a checkered past in a management role, he just asked me a bunch of questions. And then he looked at me and he said, you'll make a good decision. Go ahead and do it. And I did. And it took us to another level. But that belief in me was something that I will forever be thankful for. So Don Winther was an incredible guy. He looked like Captain Ahab, right? He had this big white beard. He was a yachtsman. He owned a big boat, but he was a normal guy. Once a month, we used to have a meeting at his house that we would drive to Lincolnshire, Illinois, and we would go into his house, big, beautiful home, adorned with books, and he was a vociferous reader. He read all the time. And Don was one of those individuals that could tell a story like nobody else could. And that was a huge influence in my life, big influence. And then when I think of Dale Carnegie training, I think of Buddy Faulkner. I was a client of Buddy's for a number of years. And one day Buddy asked me if I could go to lunch with him. And he drove up to Valdosta from Jacksonville. And he said to me, he said, Bob, I'm looking for somebody to become an area manager. Do you know of anybody? And he laid out what the compensation was and everything else. And I started thinking of some names. And as I sat down and really contemplated it, I thought to myself, geez, this is something I'd like to do. This is something that I would be interested in being. So the next time Buddy and I got together, I told Buddy, I said, I think I'd be interested in doing that. And he just looked at me and smiled and he said, exactly. I said, what do you mean? And he said, you were the person I was thinking about. And I figured that you would connect the dots. He never shared that with me the first meeting we had. It was all about helping him find somebody else. And I jumped in. I jumped in with both feet, head first, everything. And Buddy really helped me. I spoke at his eulogy. I gave his eulogy at his funeral, I should say. And, I remembered everything about that man and the things that he did to help me in my Dale Carnegie world. And to this day, when there's a question, again, integrity, Buddy you did it the right way. You didn't cut corners. You did it the right way. We're representing Mr. Carnegie every time we stand in front of a class. Do it the right way. And that was something that he instilled in me. He wasn't easy to work for. And if his wife Sharon sees this podcast, she'll know that. She worked there too. It was really the three of us that worked together. It was Buddy, his wife, and myself. And he wasn't always an easy person to work for because he had a high demand on your integrity and doing the right thing all the time. And when Buddy would get in front of a class, he was absolutely a perfectionist, and he did it the right way. And that really, really instilled a lot of belief in me. So those individuals, my dad, Coach Pantages, Coach Miller, Coach Vitale, and my kids really influenced my personal life over my years. And then in the business world, it was Ernie Wynn and his integrity, Chuck Mefford and his creativity, just extremely creative man. Bill Pacelli in his attention to detail and doing the right thing. And then, of course, Don Winther in believing in me. First time somebody really, really believed in me, that I really felt like that man, my boss, believed in me. And that was a great feeling. And then, of course, Buddy Faulkner. And Buddy was one of those individuals that just do it the right way. Don't worry about what the outside crowd is saying. Don't change what the methodology is. Mr. Carnegie built his company on doing things a certain way, and Buddy taught me not to veer off that straight line. You can be creative within that straight line, but stay on it. So those individuals really had a huge influence on who I was as a human and as a business person. We're going to take a break here. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the words that those individuals in my life, as I laid out some words that I learned from them. And we're going to touch on those words when we come back, some things that you can take and say, well, maybe these are things I can adapt in my life. So this is MotivationU the Podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Gainesville, Florida. My name is Bob Ganzak. We'll be right back after this.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Hi, Steve Spurrier here. Making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Welcome back. My name is Bob Ganzak. This is MotivationU the Podcast. Today we're talking about the people that influenced me in my life and the leaders that really had an impact on what has gone on through my world. I've had a few people ask me to talk about some of those individuals, and I could talk about those people forever. I really could. But there are certain words that describe all of them. And I want to share those words that are there. And something that you may want to do is jot some of these words down because they're things that are really important as far as leadership is concerned. And when I talk to people like Nathan Whitaker, Dr. Olson, Steve Spurrier, you see these words woven in and out of all of the things that they do in their lives. And the first word is integrity. I've used that a lot today, but integrity is something that, when we think of leaders and you're looking for leaders, sometimes we assume integrity. If they're going to be a leader, there's integrity there. But that is such an important word. It's obvious, it's an obvious thing that you have to have integrity, but it's not necessarily one of those things that we talk about all the time. It's like a given, but you actually, integrity is something that you got to stick to it. You really have to. Every organization should not demand, I don't like that word demand, but maybe command the word integrity amongst your leaders and put it as one of those values that people look at. When you hire somebody to even a supervisor role or a lead, think of the integrity, because those are the individuals that influence it. And what do I mean by that? Well, you want to stay away from, gossip in the office place. You want to stay away from telling stories out of school. Understand that sometimes being quiet is more important than sharing things. So integrity is a vital, important part of leadership. The second word that I look at is delegation. When we do a leadership class, our leadership training for managers, and we talk about delegation, that is something that people always in the classroom always say that's so difficult. It's one of the tougher things to do, the ability to delegate. Many of us get elevated from one role to another. And so that we tend to not move into the management. I'll go back to Chuck Mefford. One of the things that Chuck really instilled in me was that when I became a sales manager, I had to give up my account list. Now, I used to get a lot of joy out of putting together campaigns for clients. And then all of a sudden that's taken away from me. And it was really difficult. I hired a young man, Rob Murtham, to replace me on the sales staff. And it was really difficult for me not to jump back in and want to do what I hired Rob to do. And if that makes sense to you. So that the ability to delegate, it's a core responsibility of leadership. And everybody delegates differently, and it can be tricky. Yet that is something that you want to practice and work on, and teamwork. It's the ability to build trust in your employees. If every time you give somebody else a task to do, and the minute they start struggling, you take it over, that's not teaching them anything. And sometimes you have to have a setback in order to get growth. It's kind of like the old story about the butterfly inside the cocoon. Your tendency is to want to break that cocoon open when you see the butterfly struggling. But the development of the butterfly, part of it is that struggle in the cocoon. If they don't go through that, they don't have the strength in their wings to be able to be that beautiful butterfly that you see floating around, in the wild. It's extremely important that we allow people, when we delegate something to them, to let them struggle a little bit, coach them, encourage them. But delegation is a huge part of leadership, because that's the way people develop. So if you want to take that analogy and think of it, if you're coaching somebody and they're struggling, keep encouraging them, but understand that struggle is part of their development. They're going to struggle. You can't jump back in. So delegation is extremely important. Now, Bob, what happens? We're going to lose a client, or we're going to have something go wrong. I understand that. Yet you still have to give that person the opportunity to grow. That's how they grow. They go through the tough times. They learn that they can make it through those tough times and then achieve. And that's how you develop those individuals. That's how I developed. It wasn't, if we were not hitting our numbers in a month as a sales manager, it was easy for Bill Pacelli to step in and make it happen. He could have done that in my life. Yet he allowed me to struggle. He allowed me to struggle and work through that. He encouraged me, coached me, gave me suggestions, but he didn't step in and do it himself. So delegation is a huge, huge part of leadership. The next word, communication. The ability to communicate. We think it's always this. It's this too. It's our body language. If you got a boss, every time you walk into the room and they fold their arms and they look down and like, wow, I'm in trouble. Be open to people, encourage them, put a smile on your face, help them. Communication is so many ways. And sometimes it's just listening. It's not interjecting a thought, or it's not throwing out a solution. It's just listening, communicate. It's also saying the right words at the right time, in the right tone of voice. We talk about in our classes the Moravian study. It's a study that was done by Dr. Albert Moravian at UCLA back in 1955. It is still something that is impactful in today's world. 67 years later, where if your actions, your tone of voice, and the words you're saying are not congruent, people are going to see your body language and not hear what you say. So that part of communication is extremely important. Again, going back to a Dale Carnegie class, we spend a lot of time, and people wonder, why are you timing this talk? It's got to be 2 minutes, but I've got a lot more to say. Learning how to be clear and concise in your communication is vitally important. Business world is fast moving, and you want to make sure that you can get your point across quickly and emphatically. And that's really important. Big part of the Dale Carnegie class. Self-awareness. Know your weaknesses, know your strengths. Work on those weaknesses and build your strengths. Understand that being self-aware is an extremely focused trait. To understand that emotional intelligence. I've encouraged people to read the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Take the test, see where you are, understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. People say that you can't improve your IQ, but you can improve your EQ, and that EQ is your emotional intelligence. And you can build on that and make it better, stronger. Be self-aware, understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. And don't just say, well, that's just the way I am. I hear this all the time. I'm from New York. That's just the way I am. I'm tough. That might not be working in your business world today. I'm from Detroit. We got tough people too. You sometimes have to navigate what your strengths and weaknesses are and understand that. So self-awareness is vitally important. The ability to be grateful, gratitude, be thankful for what you have. Mr. Carnegie said that we tend to be individuals that don't look at the good things that we have in life. We only focus on the bad things. There's a great test that I read about where you just put a black dot in the middle of a paper and then have people write to see what they see there. And most individuals talk about that black dot, whereas there's a huge piece of paper of all of this open space around it, and people don't discuss that. We tend to get caught up in the negative things in our lives, and we don't talk about our blessings. So you want to count your blessings, not all your troubles. We tend to focus on our troubles. As leaders, we do that also. We only see the things that our people are doing wrong, and we don't applaud them when we see them doing things right. And that is a big part of gratitude. Be thankful that you have the opportunity. It's the difference between saying, I have to go to work and saying, I get to go to work. I mean, during the pandemic, when our business was shut down and everybody was struggling, man, I wished I had the struggles that I had when we were doing business. So learn gratitude. And then the ability to pivot, the ability to shift when things aren't going right, agility. That's a huge part of being a strong leader, is when you're caught in a downturn, how do you make that change? How do you shift your focus and your thought to be able to keep going? So a big part of that is that. And also, we spend a couple of weeks in the Dale Carnegie class, Skills for Success, on gaining willing cooperation, that ability to influence other people and gain that cooperation to build to be a leader. Leadership is influence. And for some people, it feels like a negative thing. Well, you're manipulating them. No, you're influencing them. You know where the path is going. We don't always convey that path in a strong way. So the ability to influence people, even when you're not around, that is a huge part, a big word. Go back to the beginning. Integrity, delegation, communication, being self-aware, the ability to give gratitude, and then that ability to pivot and influence. Then empathy. Empathy, and I think of that word, it's a critical part of the emotional intelligence to empathize that people are going through challenges. We all have our own desires. We all have our own challenges. To be empathetic about that. I'm not talking about sympathetic. I'm talking about empathetic, to really understanding where people are and then helping them get to that next level. When they're struggling, be empathetic. The next word, courage. Courage. Confidence and courage. Now, can you be confident and not be courageous? Can you be courageous and not confident? Yes. Those tough conversations. Are you courageous enough to do that? Are you courageous enough to get outside your comfort zone? The ability to instill that courage on your team and show that courage and to get feedback and still be able to be courageous enough to accept that feedback, even if it's negative, and not to jump out and defend yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just that ability to be courageous. It's we all like our comfort zone. We all like to live in that comfort zone. Yet sometimes you got to step outside of it. And that takes a lot of courage. Now, how do you develop that? Well, it's by overcoming that fear. Yes, you need some confidence. You need to believe in yourself. But courage is a huge word. And then the last word that I'll share with you is respect. Often when I meet with leaders or I have people of management roles or CEOs in classes, one of the things they always covet is respect. And I try to share with them that you get more respect when you give it. We tend to want the respect, yet we don't give it. And that's something, treating people with respect on a daily basis, I think is one of the most important things that a leader can do. It eases tensions. It helps some of the conflict that goes on. It creates that trust. It's something you do. You respect other people, you're going to get it in return. If you demand respect from people, I want them to respect me. Give respect to other people and you will get it in return. It's like the difference between, let's say you're looking at a wall, just a wall that is blank, and then you put a mirror there. When you respect others, it's going to be mirrored back to you. When you look at a wall and you say, I want respect, that's a one-way street. You want to look at it from the standpoint of respecting other people. You can only control you. That's all you can control. So you can give respect. Eventually, you're going to get it back. When people see that you're somebody that respects other people, it's simple. Thank yous. That's a huge part of that. And when you put it all together, when you put those words together, you start building the characteristics of a great leader. The integrity, the communication, and communication is listening and encouraging and delegating. Think about that. When I go back and look at those people that influenced my life in business, Ernie Wynn, all of those words. He communicated with me. We had conversations, tough conversations. He allowed me to complain. He allowed me to open up. He allowed me to say what was on my mind. Didn't judge me for it, not at all. Chuck Mefford, his creativity, his communication skills. He was a wordsmith. He could put words together and tell a story like nobody could. And that ability really instilled in me the desire to improve myself. Bill Pacelli, the attention to details. That is a huge part of what business is all about. And Don Winter, that empathy that he had never ran a radio station. He owned radio stations. He worked in the industry a long time, but he never actually was a general manager of a station. Yet he was so empathetic to what we went through, myself and general manager of one of our other stations that used to meet with him every single month. That empathy was so much there. He put that smile on his face and he made you feel like you could accomplish anything. And that was a key. And then, of course, Buddy Faulkner, do it the right way. Do it the right way, going back to the integrity. Do it the right way all the time. No matter what the situation is, do it the right way. So I hope that you can take from this that there are abilities, and watch this over and over again. I probably didn't put the best spin on these things, but the individuals that influenced my life taught me those words, taught me communication, taught me integrity, taught me respect, delegation. Those are words that are extremely important to you as you lead your team forward. I'm going to share with you one last thing that really influenced my life. I became a Rotarian back in the 1980s. A gentleman by the name of Dave Scogan, he owned a number of food stores, grocery stores in the La Crosse, Wisconsin area. He got me to become a Rotarian. And one of the things that he sponsored me in it, and what he told me is the four-way test, the Rotary four-way test, will be something that will live within you forever. Now, I had already read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I had not gone through the Dale Carnegie class yet. So when I saw the four-way test and then reading the book and then taking the class a few years later, I looked at how these skills and these words are so embedded in great leaders. So the four-way test is, it's called the four-way test in everything what we think, say, and do. As Rotarians, you know what I'm talking about. Is it the truth? Integrity and honesty. Is it the truth? If you're going to say something, be honest. Sometimes you can say you're going to be brutally honest. Well, sometimes you have to be careful about that if you're cutting somebody else down. But is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? So whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, whatever you're thinking, is it fair to everybody? That's important. That's part of that four-way test. Is it fair to everybody? Great thing to think about before you open up your mouth. Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Think about that. The things you think, say, and do, what is going to be the outcome? Is it going to hurt people, or is it going to build goodwill and better friendship? Amazing thought. The last one, the fourth one, will it be beneficial to all concerned? So is it fair, and will it be beneficial? So are you being fair to everybody, and then will it benefit them? Now that's the four-way test that all Rotarians take. And it's kind of, I don't know all the statistics. Paul Harris, the gentleman that really started Rotary, it was, I don't know, in the 19 teens or 20s, it was around the same time that Mr. Carnegie had started his own company. And I find it ironic that both men built their world on the same genuine principles of integrity and thought and being honest and building how to win friends and influence people. Will it build goodwill and better friendship? I mean, think about that. That's the way we want to live our life. I mean, that's the way we want to be treated. That people care. So I really appreciate you spending this hour with me and letting me talk about the people that influence my life and some of the words that maybe you can take and utilize in your world. And you know, you're creating a path. We're all on this journey of life together. And when we can go to that four-way test, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? When you can think about Mr. Carnegie and the words that he shared in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and how to stop worrying and start living, all of those things are vitally important to what we do in our world. Again, you've got a Dale Carnegie class coming up June 23rd in Jacksonville. Go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, click on the link, sign up, join us in one of our classes. Love to have you. Coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. For Evan Miller, our producer, I'm Bob Ganzak. This is Motivation U, the podcast.